Good evening. We will be conducting tonight's City Council meeting here at City Council Chambers, as well as virtually using Zoom and online Wave Channel 18. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Pastor Eric Long from the Salt Mine Church will be giving the invocation this evening, and Mayor Carl Skint will begin the meeting immediately after.
Hello, and thank you for allowing me to be here. If I can digress for just about 10 seconds, our shower project is really coming along nicely, a little slower than anticipated due to materials and contractors. They seem to hold things up these days more than ever, but it is moving forward, and we're super excited. We can't wait. Floors will be going in real soon, and then walls will be going up, and it'll be, I'm hoping at the next time I get to give the invocation, I could share some pictures. So super excited about that. So let us pray. Father, we do just thank you for this city. Thank you for today. Thank you for the opportunity to serve here. So we simply come to you and we ask for your wisdom. We ask for your discernment. And we definitely ask for your courage to do those things that are hard to do and do the things that we must do. And so in Jesus' name, we ask that you would bless this city with unity, with community. And we thank you again for this wonderful privilege of serving right here. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
It is 6 o'clock. I will call the regular meeting of the City Council, Lincoln Redevelopment Successor Agency, and the Lincoln Public Financing Authority to order March 12th, 2024. May I have the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Andriotta?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Joyner?
Here.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Here.
And Mayor Carl Skint.
Here. May I have the report from closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. There is no reportable action this evening.
I, the Pledge of Allegiance. Catherine Hunt, would you lead us, please? Next item is agenda modifications. Anyone on the council wish to modify the agenda? Staff?
Yes, Mayor, and good evening. We would respectfully request that you pull item 8E from the consent agenda, and just one clarification, just so that maybe we can jump what may be a comment. 8D is the purchase of a wildland fire engine. A couple questions have come in about whether that's a new budgetary item. That's something that was programmed in our budget actually last year, and it just shows how long it takes to actually receive one.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, presentations. Friends of the Lincoln Library. Teresa?
Mayor, after the presentation, they would like to get some photos with council.
Good evening, and thank you for making time to hear from the Friends of the Lincoln Public Library. My name is Teresa Leigh Stanislaw, and I'm the president of the Friends. The Friends is a nonprofit organization that was formed 38 years ago to support and promote the Lincoln Public Library. We operate frugally, and we have no paid staff. So all of our administrative expenses are paid with a portion of our book sales revenue, which means that every dollar that we receive through grants, donations, and membership fees are spent in direct support of their library. While the Friends play an important role in the library's success, it is a supporting role. The library's programs, needs, and priorities are determined by Catherine Hunt, our esteemed director, and her incredible staff. The director and her staff share their vision with the Friends and we supply the funds and volunteers to bring that vision to life. Last year, the Friends provided more than $61,000 for the library and more than 5,500 hours of volunteer service. Please take the time to read the 2023 annual report, which each of you have now. It describes how our funds and volunteers expand the library's outreach, collection, and value to our community. In the interest of time, I'll touch on just two such programs. First up is Family Art Night, which was held at the library on October 7th and was attended by over 500 adults and children. Attendees voted for the winner of the Tiny Art Contest, created hands-on art projects, enjoyed displays by the Art League of Lincoln, live cello music, a caricature artist, and children's face painting, not to mention a free pizza dinner for library cardholders. The Friends funded $3,250 to cover the costs of that event and recruited and organized 22 volunteers to make this community outreach effort an astounding success. And as further proof of the community's engagement, 90 library cards were issued on site at this event. Second, in January, the library launched a new family literacy program called the Read to Me Baby Literacy Kit, which will be distributed in partnership with the Lighthouse Family Service and Counseling. Each baby literacy kit contains a bilingual Spanish-English board book, a fabric baby activity book, a schedule of free library programs such as Mother Goose on the Loose. The Friends funded $2,000 to cover the cost of these books. The baby literacy kits are distributed through the Lighthouse's New Moms Home Visitation Program, which provides resources and support to struggling moms in the community. This innovative program reaches infants and their caregivers before reading even begins. Finally, I have the honor of presenting this check for $8,000 to the City of Lincoln. $3,000 to pay for the Vet Library staff time for Mother Goose on the Loose and Family Movie Night, and $5,000 to supplement the popular SIP book program. This is but a small part of the nearly $116,000 that the Friends have budgeted for the library this year. In your handouts, we've included our 2024 budget for you to review. In conclusion, I hope that you are as proud of the Lincoln Public Library as we are. We love the library and put in the time and sweat equity to make it shine. If you want to support our efforts to support the library and to acknowledge the value of our contributions, please join or renew your annual membership to the Friends. Our membership fee is only $15, and we guarantee that 100% of that fee will be spent on the library. It would mean the world to us to have our city leaders join our efforts in supporting the Lincoln Public Library. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I can speak for everybody on the dais. We love the library too. And I think most of us are supporters and members of Fall. And,
I'm not yet.
Not yet, but maybe after tonight.
I
Yeah.
am, this is so visible to all members of the community, what you people do and what the library does. It's a very major element to city government. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I make one comment?
Certainly can.
I want to say thank you also. We have a lot of volunteers in Lincoln, but I don't think anybody works as hard as you guys do. You work so hard, and we're so appreciative of everything that you do for the library and the money that you raise. And on a personal note, I wanted to thank you. I was so touched this last December, I was undergoing thyroid cancer treatment, and you all sent me a card. And that just touched me so much, and I wanted to thank you for that personally. So I'm glad you're here tonight, but thank you for all you do. We're very grateful.
So did you just toss the challenge out to all the other volunteers?
Yeah. Well, no, everybody works hard. So they might be as equally working hard, but nobody works harder than them. They do such a great job.
Covered.
Yes. Hey, yeah, challenge accepted, right? You hear that, bus? Challenge accepted, yeah.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
You guys
yeah,
want
they do.
pictures?
They do.
Pictures? Where do you want to
You want to go get the check first?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed.
Where do you want us, Gwen? Okay. Are we coming around or are we staying back here? Yeah. Accepted, challenge accepted to me. I know, right? You didn't want to be in the picture anyway, did you? Happy to pass.
I love those feel-good things.
I love that.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation from our Public Works Director on energy efficiency and a cost-saving project.
Good evening, Merrill Carlskint and members of the City Council and members of the public here tonight. I'm going to introduce this item, but I kind of want to start kind of prior to my arrival here at the City of Lincoln. And the City of Lincoln and the Public Works Department's committed to continually finding cost savings measures and efficiency measures. And before my arrival, the city had already engaged a company, Eco Green Solutions, and had commenced 3 LED streetlight retrofit projects. And that is to save on energy savings in finding more efficient light fixtures. Last June, the City Council approved an additional 11 LED retrofit projects. And also concurrently, we started looking into other energy savings measures. And we talked to several energy services companies, and we explored additional LED lighting retrofit projects, street lights, and our IT department asked us to pump the brakes. They actually worked with our streets division and did kind of an assessment of what was out there and found that PG&E records weren't all the way corrected. So we actually did a reconciliation. I know Jennifer Brown and Brian Small found a lot of records that were incorrect, and I know they found a lot of savings there. And I think there's a statute of limitations that is limited to 3 years. I think there's a little bit more savings than that, but they found those savings. Also, our engineering department regularly plans for using variable frequency drives at our pump sites. So that's another way we're always being energy conscious. So right now, tonight we're presenting what we've been working on for probably the last 6 to 12 months in identifying additional ways to save money. And we engaged several energy services companies, and we looked at HVAC solutions, we looked at lighting solutions, and what we kind of honed in on was that we didn't have any solar power generation. And that was the big piece we were missing. And as we all know and have experienced, us that are in the PG&E district or service area, that just this past January, the rates went up 13% on average. And a lot of rates went up higher than that. And I think just in the last few days, the CPUC again raised the PG&E rates. So, or allowed PG&E to raise their rates. So tonight we have a company, SiteLogic, that we've been working with for over 6 months in identifying the best project for the city that incorporates solar power generation and leverages a couple of programs, net metering aggregation, which had a sunset for applications in February. And the city actually proactively got applications submitted so that we're still eligible for 9 years of net metering to grandfathering. We don't get the full 20 years, but we got in the door, our pinky toe in the door, so we could get as much as we could before it sunsetted. And now applications are no longer accepted. So we got that going for us. And then we're also trying to take advantage of a ResBEC system, which has a cap of 105 megawatts for California. And I think they're up to about 70 have been used at this point. So there's still an opportunity to use a ResBEC system. And I know SiteLogic will explain more of that. But tonight we're just introducing the team we've been working with and the project scope that we've identified. There's still a lot of hurdles to go. We've submitted, and you'll see later on the agenda, there's a public hearing that we've continued to a date certain of the first meeting in April because we weren't fully prepared, and we felt that introducing this subject in this public meeting would be appropriate. And again, there's still more hurdles to solve, and I know Nita, although Finance Department's very busy, this will be another big ask from the Finance Department to help us with this project if it is approved. So we really appreciate our Finance Department. But with that, I would like to introduce the team, and they'll go through kind of their program, their company, and the highlights of the project that we've been working on together. And that's Jessica Ritter, Taylor Boyle, and Eddie Jordan with SiteLogic. And here's Jessica.
All right, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thanks for having us tonight. We have a PowerPoint. It looks long, but we'll breeze right through it. Really, just to reiterate what Matt said, we've been working with the Public Works team, Sean, Nita, for quite some time now. What we really want to do tonight is introduce you to the designs, the sizes, where they're going to go. We have some renderings for you to look at. I will say this, we've definitely vetted out the sizes, the locations, the orientations of the panels, but we would always welcome your feedback. It is going into your city after all. All right, great. So Matt already introduced us. I'm Jessica Ritter. I do government relations for SiteLogic. With me today is Taylor Boyle. She is our Director of Project Development and our Vice President of Project Development. Right. A little bit about SiteLogic. We are a US-owned company. We work with cities, counties, special districts, school districts, but really we focus on public works projects only. Our largest client base is here in California. California has the biggest need for energy projects, as you all know. Anybody that has a PG&E bill understands that. We have a very large office down the hill in Sacramento, so we're quite close. And let's get right into the designs here. Okay, City Hall. So this is what we're looking at here on the map. You see your building here. These are carport structures that are going to go into the, I don't know which direction I'm facing, but I think there's a parking lot over this way and over this way. I think that way and that way. Close enough. We have a rendering here so you can kind of see a little bit. Yeah, I'm like, all the windows are blacked out. I don't know where I'm at. So this is basic solar carport structure. You've seen these all at schools and parking lots. They'll be up high enough for fire trucks not to hit them, and they'll provide shade for the cars and in the area. I believe there's going to be some EV charging that's going to go down here at some point as well. So we'll have the panels and the structures EV ready. So we'll run the conduit to those, and whenever you guys decide on a type of EV brand, it'll be easier to install. Moving right along to the community center. So we know that the parking lot is kind of shared here with the school. We've designed and oriented these panels to be on your property here, so there won't be any issues. And that's what it's going to look like. Again, very basic. There's lots of things that you can do as far as painting the columns. There's different colors of the columns. They don't just have to look like steel. There's ways to make these look a little bit prettier, but we can talk about that a little bit later on. All right, courtyard. This won't be necessarily very visible to the public, but it is very necessary here. Courtyard is a very high energy user, so we've designed these arrays to offset as much usage as we can right here. And that's what it's going to look like from the ground view. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions. McBean Park, this is my favorite site. This is your pickleball court, and I'd like to show you the rendering here. This will provide shade to your pickleball courts, and I think this is pretty cool. So Matt and our team took a lot of time on this design, and we are really stoked about how this is going to turn out. There's also going to be lighting under here as well, but this really cool barn-style design, I think, is going to provide a huge benefit for your pickleball players, and I can foresee some pickleball tournaments happening here.
I'm glad that you mentioned that there's lighting that is going to be
Mhm.
incorporated in that too, because when they first were doing the pickleball courts, the big question was, what about lighting? Because
Yeah.
I know we want to, and they're like, well, that's going to be another X amount of dollars that we don't have, so we'll have to maybe look on the fridge. I'm like, oh darn. So.
We got you.
It-
Yeah.
Jessica,
Matt-
it's hard to tell from the picture. I mean, obviously it's high up, and I know pickleball's not baseball, but what happens if a ball hits one of those? Is it pretty sturdy or?
So thankfully, pickleball is played with wiffle balls.
Oh, that's
So
okay.
I think we'll be okay. As
I
far
didn't
as
realize they
any
were
damage.
that light.
But you could get a player who's like really overzealous and might want to throw their racket up there. We don't really have a lot of control over that. The panels are fairly strong, and you can see that there's some purlins and other kind of steel structures. So let's hope that racket hits a piece of steel and not a panel. But all of these, since the city is going to own these solar arrays, they will be included in your city-wide insurance. They will be insured in case something like that happens, but let's hope not.
They are meant to handle 2-inch hail.
Yeah.
But that's about it. So,
Okay,
yeah,
that's good.
big racket probably could break. Can't say-
You never know. It's a pretty high up too. They'd have to have.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. And then, of course, your police department. So you can see from this picture here, the police cars right now parked towards the railroad tracks, but I have a feeling they are going to switch that over and all the PD vehicles are going to be parked under this shade structure here. Mhm.
Well, both here and the courtyard, why are you putting the panels on parking lot,
Instead of
building the structure instead of the roof?
the roof.
It would
Matt,
seem
do you want to
me
take that question or we can?
that it
Yeah.
would be cheaper.
It would be cheaper, maybe. So some of the buildings are quite old. So there's a couple of reasons why we don't go on the roof. One, we need more panels than what the roof has space for. So even if we put some panels on the roof, we'd probably need some on a carport anyways to kind of supplement that. But another big reason, and this has come up years and years that we've been doing this, is the roofs need to be replaced. The roofs need to be repaired. When you have solar panels on the roof, to repair and replace the roof is a bear. Okay, let's just call it an expensive problem to have. This really eliminates that problem. The roof, the building's not, sometimes the
So-
building's old and you have to have another structural review,
So
so
the life cycle cost is cheaper.
definitely, yeah.
Well, and in addition,
Got old buildings.
yeah, but in addition, a lot of the buildings that are older have flat top roofs. And so therefore the roofing treatment that now is the best bang for your buck is sort of a epoxy that you pour instead of just new roofing materials. And so you've got to figure that if you're going to be anchoring a very heavy piece of equipment into that epoxy, pulling it out for maintenance or whatever is just sort of unruly. And it creates additional perforations that create leaks and so on and so forth.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. That was what I was going to respond.
Okay,
Also,
sorry about
most
that.
commercial roofs are 20-year life, where people that have roofs or rooftop systems at their homes, those are usually 50-year roof systems, whether they're tile, asphalt, shingle. So a flat roof has a lot. We're going to have to pull it off at least once during the life cycle of the solar.
Great question, though.
One more question about this site right here.
Okay.
And you can answer it later if you want to, but I want to ask before I forget. So if we were going to leave our police station there, that would be great. But our plan is eventually to build a new police station in a new location. And I know it's a little bit down the road, but are we wasting money putting this up here when we're going to be leaving? Or are we going to save enough to make a difference before we build a new police station?
Chiefs, I haven't been a part of, long-term planning for the city, but Chief Alves had recommended this site for a public works substation. I know that police they're not interested in a substation, but I think that would be beneficial for us, or,
Okay.
staging equipment and maybe even a supplementary EV charging station as well.
Well,
Very happy with the hand-me-down.
Yeah, and then separate of that, like, especially, you'll hear from Jessica in a little bit that there are going to be a couple of different ownership or finance options that we'll later discuss at future meetings. But let's say that Chief and I hit a grand slam and we find a great location for a new police department and we find funding to do it all. It's a lot of ifs. This is still an asset that you potentially own. And so therefore, if you decided to sell the property to a business or something like that, then there probably is some value to them in having, because this will offset roughly 50% of the police department's power load per day. So and they use a lot of power. So any other user in there may have 100% of the load offset.
Okay, that answered my question. Thanks.
There you go. Awesome. And there's the rendering for the PD. Oh. There we go. Let's go back so the public can see the rendering. And there's the rendering for the police department. All right. All right, now this is the ResBECT system. So this system is designed to offset multiple meters throughout the city where we can't build solar directly on site, if that makes sense. So we prefer to build solar and directly interconnect to the meter where the usage is, but we don't always have that option, right? Sometimes they're street light meters, sometimes they're, just small landscaping and lighting district meters. So this array helps to offset all that extra usage throughout the city. This is a ground mounted system. I don't think we bothered with a rendering because it's nothing to look at. It's just solar mounted slightly off the ground, oriented towards the sun. Okay, so in addition to all of the solar, Matt and his team also identified a few HVAC replacements that are desperately needed. So we've come out, we've done our site visits, taken lots of pictures of some very old units, 4 located at the police department, 8 at the community center, and 2 at your recently acquired arts building across the street here. Any questions on the HVAC? Okay. With all of our projects, and especially on the solar portion, we provide a 90% performance guarantee. So what we're saying the solar is going to save and the panels are going to produce, you don't need to take our word for it. We're actually backing it up with some insurance, you could say, for the city. This will also come with a dashboard. So the Public Works Department, Facilities Department can kind of monitor and manage and be aware of everything that's happening on the back end with the solar arrays, but we will also be monitoring and managing that on our end. Part of the benefit of having a performance guarantee is we're on the hook, right? So if something goes wrong with the solar array, if an inverter goes down, we're going to know about it probably before you do, and it's going to be in our best interest to run a truck out here really quick, get it fixed, so that your panels are going to produce and to what we say they're going to produce, so we don't have to write you a check at the end of the year if there's a deficit. All right, so this is where we are at, and Matt explained it. This is a very long process designing these large projects for cities. We are almost all the way there. So we are at final program development. Next steps is really to work with NEDA. This is where NEDA is going to come in handy because this project needs funding. So there's a couple of different ways to fund this project. Sean touched on it a little bit. It's really going to be Nita's final decision. She's the money manager for the city. We are looking at a snapshot of the cash flow, but we're not really going to get into this too much tonight. We'll come back, I think, sometime in April and really dig deep into the financial metrics of the project. But I just wanted to, so you guys could get prepared in your mind, this is a $10.7 million project as it stands, with a 30-year net savings to the city of $26 million. So it is very good financial decision for the city. And the way that that's going to pencil out as far as if the city is going to own it, finance it with a bank loan or a power purchase agreement, there's many different ways to skin this cat. And that's going to really come down to Nita's decision. And that's it. That's what we got. We're here to answer any questions you might have.
I did want to add just a little bit and why the timing, and I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the California Air Resources Board has also implemented advanced clean fleet regulations for the heavy and medium duty vehicles, which we have several in public works. And the new rule is that in 2024, 50% of our procurement of heavy and medium duty vehicles needs to be zero emission. So right now that's either electric or hydrogen. And in 2027, that requirement becomes 100%. There's one option, which is a milestone, and it has staggered percentages for percentage of fleet that needs to be zero emission instead of a procurement requirement. But in consideration of that, in consideration of the PG&E costs just continue to escalate, and our opportunity to take advantage of the net metering aggregation and the RESPECT, which are both limited programs, now is why we're pushing this forward.
I think that also, I mean, we knew about the utilities accounts being in trouble for, a little while. And when we were looking at any ways that we could have savings with LED lights and things like that as well, I'm pretty sure that that's one of the reasons he ended up looking through this too, because, in the long run, it will end up saving all of our community members a lot of money as well, even though there was such a huge lift this last year for the increase in the rates and whatnot.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Nita, Sean, and I definitely, and some other staff, engage many conversations with the public over utility rates, and this is always at the top of our mind. How can we save money? Stop the bleeding. So this is a really important project for the city.
Well, and I have solar on my home, and I actually used to sell solar to homeowners too, and so I have a little bit of a unique knowledge based on what you're doing and how important it really is for a city to engage in this.
No question. Sean and I have talked about it on several different occasions. It's an intriguing program. It catches my interest, obviously, and I think all of yours. In addition to the obvious is the benefit that it may provide, however small, to the lighting and landscaping district solution as we look down the road. I'm going to question whether the state in their requirements for zero emission vehicles has set a practical goal or not, but we need to be moving in the right direction in the eventuality that mandate holds. So I'm supportive.
Bill? The shop, the courtyard police station, are those part of the aggregation, or are those building area dedicated?
As far as the net metering aggregation,
Yeah.
the police station didn't have an adjacent meter, so that is the one NEM 3 project, and that's why it's smaller. As Sean mentioned, it's not the full load, because any overgeneration we sell back at wholesale. So Taylor on the SiteLogic team looked at where the sweet spot was as far as sizing that large enough, or basically to maximize the savings, but not overproduce where we only get like 8 cents a kilowatt hour. So we sized it, and maybe Taylor can speak to that a little bit better than I can.
When I looked at the sizing for NEM3, I was looking at, being in the optimal offset, which was about 50%. And then also, in the long-term vision of if EV chargers were added, what additional load would be considered at those sites. So for the NEM2 sites, you see that the offset's a little bit larger because we're taking into account NEM2 at the beginning and then transitioning into NEM3 later.
I was also taking a step further and thinking of microgrids if you had battery backup for those two locations for safety.
Always an option.
I just wondered if it.
We did discuss it, and we felt that it wasn't feasible at this time, and that generators were still more, I guess, beneficial, more feasible, lower cost. But that would be an option in the future, especially as battery prices come down.
And we do think about that.
And you can't
making it
run diesel
feasible.
anymore.
And Mayor, one thing that, because we weren't going into extreme detail tonight, but we will in future meetings, is important, is that if you're seeing this for the first time, you might assume, because there's a lot of discussion through the process, that you hear the term EV charging. That's an ancillary benefit to the program. It just happens to be that if that is the way that things go, that we will have some opportunity to do that at very little cost to us. The real benefit is the offset of the power, for example, here, across the street, at all the various facilities we have in town. The pickleball courts one, for example, will offset the pavilion use significantly. And that building, as you know, the HVAC units are very, very expensive to run in the summer. And so what you'll see in the future is we're going to do what we can to figure out on an enterprise fund basis and a general fund basis where we think the savings exist, so that those can be realized. And for Matt, Nita, and I, the real question was, does the city want to continue to pay full retail rates or not? And if the answer is, yeah, we want to continue to pay full retail rates, then we will be, sort of at the behest of PG&E from now on until whenever. So it's almost kind of like, if we're going to do this, no matter what the form, now is the time, because it will never be as beneficial as it is now. I don't see them going back to NEM 1 or 2, probably.
Would have been better 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And
How many years are left on that net two before the transition to 3?
We submitted the application, so we're eligible for 9 years
But I thought I
of
heard you
NEM
say-
2 in this program. And as we plan on likely transitioning over time to EVs, whether it's EVs and hydrogen, I can't see EVs not being a part of the equation. We'll continue to use that power and not, sell back at wholesale at that NEM 3 rate. We'll be utilizing more power over time.
Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much. Very good presentation.
Thank you very
Very
much.
interesting.
Thank you.
concept.
And we plan to return, well, I guess we'll hear the public hearing continuance, but I believe it's April 9th with a whole lot more detail.
Okay, great.
Thank you. That ends the presentation part of the agenda. Next item is public comment on non-agenda items. This is your opportunity to speak about something that is not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes. And I have 2 cards. Then I'll ask for people from the audience. The first card is Deborah Gilchrist, who wants to talk about compliance.
Got it. Can you start the time over, please? Thank you. So last time I was here, I ended with our retaining wall going in 2019. I'm going to start this meeting with a letter that your city attorney wrote. Quote, "She did not advise. She has paid your firm over $20,000 to defend her interests to date. By all estimates, that sum exceeds what it would have cost her to relocate a 6-foot fence. I'm going to come back to that at the end. My wall was cited on November 15th of 2022. No appeals process was included with the citation. January 5th, 2023, Molenkopf refused to provide me the city's appeals process, saying she could not give legal advice. I was not asking for legal advice. I was asking for what is the city's appeals process. I could not find that appeals process anywhere on your website. I asked council, who is now our mayor, for assistance. We met at the Starbucks in Lincoln. He did not know the process. He said that your appeals board had been, was no longer in existence. But he would find out what that process was. It took him about a week. He did get me that information. What that city's appeals process is, you are cited, you are fined, you pay the fine. You then can complete the appeals paperwork to request an appeals hearing. Everyone at the city knew that I wanted to appeal the decision. Everybody. I left numerous voice messages, including with Mayor Dan. Everything fell on deaf ears. Nobody responded to it. I continued to get cited. I was cited 8 times from November 15th of 2022 until April 14th of 2023. None of those citations had the appeals process nor the fine in them. Then on April 14th of 2023, your city attorney threatened with criminal prosecution, which then forced me to have to get an attorney. I had to pay an attorney $2,500 to write a letter to your attorney to cease and desist and to fine me so that I could appeal the process. I did get a citation from them, but that citation referred to a fine, but no fine amount. So then I had to pay my attorney $2,500 again to simply tell her to put the fine amount, $5,000 of the legal fees for a fine that was $100. I'm just going to let you sit on that for a minute. Yet, just like in her letter, she accused me of having the $20,000 to move my wall. Every legal fee amount that I have incurred to date, which I will go in more detail, has been your city attorney and her failure to deal with this. She continues to tell you that she's helping. She's not. And I will go into more detail about that every 2 weeks when I come to your council. Thank you.
Next blue card that I have is Julie Gilchrist.
Thank you. I think we need to stop meeting this way every week, but here we are again. I'm going to talk tonight about the decision that was made that Mrs. Deborah and her family were asked to do. They were asked to move the wall back 5 feet and to put a fence up that was the wall and the fence, a totality of 72 inches. Now, I have a note from a geotechnical engineer or a soils engineer that was asked for by your city attorney, which cost another $5,000. And this was his thing. It is our opinion the existing CMU retaining wall is stable under current conditions and is necessary in order to reduce erosion. Now, let's just say we have to move that back 5 feet. That takes the sure wall, that takes the compaction, and that takes the dirt that has been settled down. So what is left to hold up the wall that we're trying to hold up with this retaining wall? Not a lot. Now, if you were to combined the wall and the fence, the wall is now 42 inches. The fence would be now 30 inches, and that is nothing when it comes to keeping children out of the swimming pool. I don't know if you got the picture that I sent you, that I left in your boxes about showing you the wall and the swimming pool. It did, for 8 months, that wall was open to vandalism and to children. And that is particularly that, oh, I haven't even started yet. that is particularly dear to my heart because I ran a preschool for 40 years. I know what children do. I know what an attractive nuisance is. They incurred a lot of vandalism, and that was horrific. But what would have happened because we were told to cease and desist any building on that wall, and it was open to the road for 8 months. Happily, it was during the winter. If it was during the summer, I think it would have been a bigger problem. I can't imagine how any of us would have felt if a child were either drowned or harmed in that. And the liability, I'm not sure, is ours or the city's, but it certainly was a liability that we were, thank God, able to step aside. On your city site, it tells you exactly what the, okay. Thank you. I would just refer you to what your swimming pool enclosure fences require, and it's certainly not a 30-inch fence. Thank you for your time again.
Any other members of the public wishing to make a comment on items not on the agenda? Seeing no interest,
No hands are raised online.
board, I will close public comment. We go to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda except 8E, who has been pulled.
B and E.
And no, we're not pulling. I'm sorry, that was my backup to the 3 minutes when I noticed.
We're not pulling D?
We're not pulling D.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
Okay, so I'll accept a motion. Does anybody in the public wish to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Mayor, 8.
Charlie, 8, Charlie?
Yes.
Okay, 8E and 8E.
Point B.
Okay. So B, C, and E are pulled. Anybody online wanting to pull something?
No hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay. I'll
Motion
accept
to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
I second.
the motion in a second on the remainder of the consent agenda. Please call the roll.
Yes. Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Andriana?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskint.
Yeah. Okay, we take individually the other ones. 8B as in boy. Staff report discussed.
No. I oppose it. I've opposed everything along these lines, and I'm tired of it, but anyhow, I oppose it. No way.
Okay,
We just need to
any
vote on it.
discussion on? Any public comment? I'll accept a motion.
I move approval of 8B.
A second.
Yes,
Motion in a second.
thank you. Councilmember Andriana?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
No.
And Mayor Carlskint.
Yes. Next item is 8C. Accept the McBean pickleball courts as a completed item. You have questions you want? staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council members, city staff, Byron Chapman, Toll Bridges area. Hopefully it's a question could be hopefully easily answered. On the pickleball court, start to finish, from the time that the city, I want to say, took action in order to get the pickleball up to speed, approximately how long did that take? Thank you.
I
I'm
have a
going to
good
ask
idea, but-
Sean for help.
Yeah, this was before our new city engineer. It's long before he started. Byron, I'm going off of memory here, so if I'm wrong, I'll email you tomorrow. But I believe it was the spring of last year that this came up, because if, just for everybody else's knowledge, that area was at one time, many years ago, a kind of put together skate park for kids. It was taken down, and to go into detail, it was moved to another park. Then we had this area that was sort of non-used. We started talking with Recreation about what would be kind of a new fun thing to do. Pickleball is all the rage. Council approved it in the spring. It gets into our capital improvement program, and then because it's a real construction project, it has to go to competitive bid. You take the low bid, the contractor schedules it, the work is done, and then usually there's a good 2, 3, 4 month period after a public project is completed where change orders, corrections that, we'll go out and inspect it, make sure it's done to standard, to plan. And there's almost always a handful of things that they've got to come out and fix, which we've done, and now it's up and running. In fact, if you ever drive by there, it's pretty much busy all the time.
It actually started with a test case of before that, where they had people teaching pickleball, showing the residents what pickleball are. I'm at the park, but I don't think they used this area. I think they used basketball courts.
Yep.
Okay, so it's been in process for longer than the
Yeah.
18 months you're talking about.
Well, another problem is that the material they pour for the type of court surface, obviously can't pour it during wet weather. We had a super wet winter. So roughly a year, a lot longer than we'd like for a relatively simple project, but it's competing with the staff time of multi-million-dollar roadway improvements and water projects that we're doing all over town. And so it falls into the queue like everything else.
Okay, thank you. That satisfy your request for information? So any discussion, any other questions from the audience? Anybody online?
No hands are raised, Mayor.
I move approval of 8C.
I second.
Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lordson?
No.
And Mayor Carlskent.
Yes. Next item separately to be discussed is 8E, adopting a resolution accepting the transfer of equipment donated by the Public Safety Foundation.
My red is on, this red is off. So this evening, this is a simple routine item, but the path to get here was anything but routine for our department. So I wanted to make a little bit more of a spectacle and shine a bit of a spotlight on this donation. So this resolution is to adopt or accept the donation of a True Narcan handheld narcotics analyzer donated by the Lincoln Public Safety Foundation. So with the global drug problem increasing and trafficking of methamphetamines, heroin, and emerging drug threats, specifically like fentanyl, there's heavy impact within the community and for our police departments and public safety in general. So we need to, as public safety, be able to quickly and accurately identify suspected narcotics in the field, just to keep drugs and drug dealers off the street. And with the advent of fentanyl, it has completely changed law enforcement's approach to testing drugs. When I started way back in the day, we would test drugs with it was a little science kit with droppers. You'd take a bit of the material, put it in a cup, and you drop, and there's a couple of us over here that remember these days. And then whatever color it turned into, that was the drug that you had. That upgraded to crushed ampules with a cotton swab where you would swab the material, and depending if you got a reaction, that would be the drug present. Nowadays, with fentanyl and the incredibly small amount that's needed to overdose on, police departments across the state at least have changed their policies where we don't test drugs, period, simply because we don't know what's in them, and handling them is incredibly dangerous for law enforcement now. So what we're forced to have to do is we We pulled the drug off of the individual. Just by visual, we'll guesstimate what it may be based on our training and experience, issue a citation or make an arrest, and then we have to send the drug out to a DOJ lab for testing to determine exactly what it is. The TrueNarc allows field testing in a non-contact fashion. The TrueNarc, we don't have it yet, but it's a device kind of, if you think of the label makers, about the size of a label maker, that's about how big this device is. And it's a non-contact testing unit where you hold the sensor to the unit, to the product, through the bag, through the packaging, and it will read up to 530 different type of narcotic substances. So it's a non-contact way for us to be able to test drugs in the field and know what they are. This is a very expensive item, just shy of $39,000 for a single device. They're so expensive, even Placer County only has 3 of them in the field, so they're very hard to come by and hard to purchase. This was not budgeted in our funding this year or for next year, so we turned to the Lincoln Public Safety Foundation for some help. So that being said, the reason I'm here tonight is I want to introduce some of the Lincoln Public Safety Foundation. So the Lincoln Public Safety Foundation was founded in June of 2023. They're a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to bridge the gap between limited budgets and the critical needs of Lincoln's first responders. They're not here to supplant city budgets. They're here to support and just improve on some of these items that are a little out of the ordinary or just so difficult to procure through typical government processes. That's why they exist. So while the city budgets cover essential expenses and some extras, it can fall short sometimes. We all know that. That's the world we live in. And so it's a little more difficult for us to get the latest equipment, technology, and training necessary for us to excel in our roles. So the Lincoln Public Safety Foundation steps in to help fill this void, and they ensure that the first responders of Lincoln are fully equipped to face the challenges that we encounter every day. As evidenced by the friends here earlier, we're so lucky in Lincoln to have a community who supports all the organizations, but me specifically, the police and fire departments. Annually, over the past number of years, I'd be contacted by entities within the city, either organized groups or individuals who want to make a noticeable donation to the police or fire department. And it's just really difficult to process those funds and accept the check and make sure, it's a headache for Nita's department. So we had the idea to create this foundation to be that go-between, to be the arbiters of the funds, to make the purchases and then just donate the item. Instead of donating cash, they will go out and procure this item and then straight donate it to the city. So since the foundation's organized, it's raised well over $50,000 in a very short amount of time. And there's no reason to believe that it's going to stop there. And honestly, it's just been a humbling experience working with these individuals. Just the support and these people taking time out of their lives to support the police and fire departments is just an honor to be in the room with them. So our board is comprised of community leaders who have a strong influence in the community and are heavily embedded in the Lincoln area. And just to introduce some of them real fast, we have Chris Knutson, our president. We have Jeffrey Demura, our vice president. Jan Bedwell, our treasurer. And then the board members, we have Barb Morbeck, Richard Buss, Dave Arbara. Man, it's been a long day. Chuck Schmidt and Helen Johnson. So these are just a smattering of the folks we have. We have some that couldn't make it tonight, but I wanted to put a face to this Public Safety Foundation that you've been hearing about over the past few months. So thank you for the donation. And now I turn it over to you for the difficult decision to accept this donation and answer any questions.
Gosh, what will we do? I don't know. Yeah, we do.
Comments? Other than the fact that it's wonderful to have a foundation.
It's wonderful.
That's where I was going to head. Absolutely. That to see the community support that has always been there in times of great need and in times of not so great need. Now step up into law enforcement and, the public safety realm altogether is wonderful. I've often been a little envious of a similar foundation for the county and the fact that these folks were willing to step up and do such important work for the community. I'm really appreciative of.
Well, and Chief, I appreciate your forward thinking in putting this together and realizing the need. And so I agree with you that, I mean, I was there at the bingo night and that place was packed. I think that was the biggest one ever. And people just want to give and help support, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the board because I know several of them sit on other nonprofit boards. And so you are all very hardworking too. So I really appreciate that. And of course, we're going to accept your check. So and my only other comment is just keep it coming because thank you so
No
much.
check, gift.
Yeah, gift, yes. Yes.
Our chief.
Well then, so
I want to compliment our chief, but also compliment our community.
Yeah.
Because, man, by creating our foundation, you gave the community to step up and come forward and take charge, help out where help is needed. And Lincoln did. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's it.
We need a sticker of Chris Knudsen like this. That is awesome. We need that.
I look forward to the additional work that the Lincoln Public Safety Foundation will continue to do. I'm amazed by what they've accomplished and can only express my gratitude in a way that says, let's keep going. Let's show everybody else how it's done.
Hey, Mayor, one thing I just don't want to leave unsaid. I've had this conversation with a number of the foundation members, and Chief and I, complain about it all the time. There isn't really a more difficult time, probably in our history, to sign up to be a police officer for all types of different reasons. And so like separate of the monetary assistance, which is super appreciated, it's a statement that a community supports law enforcement. I think that's kind of lost a lot of the time here. And so it really means a lot even outside of the money part.
Yep. Agreed.
it is. We keep Lincoln, we all strive for, and this is the epitome of Lincoln. The community behind the government. I don't see that in other towns. So you're able to bring it together. I was just wondering whether we're going to challenge them to do better than fall.
Yeah, well, hey, the challenge is on.
Be gentle with them.
No, yes.
We have a good thing going.
We do have a good thing going, of course, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Byron.
Yes. Public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too, over the years, and currently do have police enforcement in the family. So without question, from firsthand standpoint that I don't know much of a more dangerous, less rewarding job that an individual could sign up for. Going into a burning building or going up to a car or someone's house that you have no idea what's going to happen. With that, and with this wonderful committee that we have here, due to the chief, there's not a lot of us left in the room, but I think it's worth recording, and that is, let's give them a hand because I think they've done an excellent job.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any comments online?
Yes, Mayor. Fred Neves, please go ahead.
Well, hi, everybody. It's Fran Nevis. I just held out a picture with all that board and the police chief and you guys, like you do at the library. Can you hear me?
Yes, we had planned to take a photo, Fran. Thank you.
And it's kind of hard to hear. I don't know if Dan's mic is as loud as the rest of them, but It's kind of hard to hear you a little bit, Mayor.
The Fran would like a picture, as we did with Friends of the Library. And she wonders if your mic isn't working as well because it's hard to hear you.
You got to stay on your mic.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hey,
You're welcome. Yeah, I understand.
your mic isn't working either.
Hey, but my sound is okay tonight, right?
Yeah, you sound like you're underwater, friend.
Yes.
Yes.
That's okay. We understood you. Thank
We
you.
understand, yeah.
Okay, so I guess we need a resolution.
Yeah, well, I
Oh.
happily move that we approve item 8E.
A motion is second.
I'm sorry, the second was from, thank you, Councilmember Andriana?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskin.
Yes.
You better. Fran said.
Yeah.
Yep. And over. And have the device.
Yeah, our device, yeah.
He needs to stand in front. With that big smile, he needs to be in front. Wait, I'll see.
Thank you guys so much. Over this again. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. I know you're a busy guy these days, doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah. That's what I said, booty trap, that's what I said, that's what I said, booty trap.
What would we do without my cracks? I don't.
Moving on to public hearings. The item 9A is continued, day certain of April 9th, 2024. Go into general business. Item 10A is the general plan and housing element annual progress report. Efren?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Efren Sanchez, Senior Planner with Community Development Department. The project we have before you is the 2023 General Plan Annual Progress Report, APR, which is a report designed to monitor the city's implementation of the general plan. State law requires that each city and county prepare an annual progress report. The same state law requires that the APR be presented to the local legislative body, which is in this case, City Council, for review and acceptance prior to submitting to the Office of Planning and Research and the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, by April 1st. The housing element portion of the APR is a highly data-driven report prepared through the use of a standard Excel workbook adopted by HCD, which is why it's included as a separate attachment. In addition to the state law, our General Plan Policy Land Use 8.1 requires staff to share the APR with both the Planning Commission and City Council. On February 21st, the Planning Commission reviewed the APR and asked for minor clarification regarding the number of permitted dwelling units and requested future APRs provide additional information. Staff responded to the PC's comments and no public comments were received at the time. Ultimately, the PC unanimously recommended that the City Council receive and authorize the report be submitted to OPR and HCD. The 2008 General Plan guides orderly development of the city with a planning horizon of 2050, representing a built-out population of 132,000 residents. The City of Lincoln's General Plan has a total of 109 implementation measures across all 7 elements. The table found on this slide is a summary of the progress the city has made towards implementing all 109 implementation measures so far. According to this table, 12% of the implementation measures have been completed, 60% are ongoing, and 28 are still incomplete or waiting to be initiated. Additional specific information about these implementation measures can be found in attachment 2. This slide is a summary of the information that is available in the housing element APR, attachment 3. In 2023, the city permitted 458 dwelling units. Of those, 429 were single-family dwellings, 24 duets, and 5 were ADUs. Currently, we're in the housing element 6 cycle, which spans from May 2021 to May 2029. The state has assigned the City of Lincoln a regional housing need allocation number of 5,120. So far, our progress from 2021 to 2023 has been the ability to produce 1,753 dwelling units, which leaves us a remaining balance of 3,367 to go by the time we reach the end of the housing cycle, housing element cycle 6, which is May 2029. That leads us to our recommendation. Staff recommends that the City Council receive and file the information contained in the staff report, APR attachments, and take the following action. 1, determine that the General Plan and Housing Element Annual Progress Report is not a project under Section 15378 of the CEQA guidelines. Review and accept the 2023 General Plan and Housing Element APR, and adopt Resolution 2024-046, authorizing staff to file the report with the Office of Planning of Research and Department of Housing and Community Development. The subsequent steps will be for staff to make all necessary and appropriate clerical or formatting corrections to the approved APR prior to submitting if needed, and submit by the April 1st deadline. So that concludes my presentation. If the commission has any questions, I'm available.
Any questions, comments?
No question, just a thought. The year permitted isn't necessarily the year completed. So it might be useful to have that data as well as we look at RENA and try to gauge whether we're going to be able to get close to those allotted numbers.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, in the Housing Element Annual Progress Report, it is broken down by like issued permits. So basically what we did is we looked at Acela data, so our permitting software, and based off of that, we have issued permits from a calendar year of January 1st to December 31st in 2023. And so we pull that data with Jen's help, of course. And basically we have to sort through like all that data of like when the permit was issued. And then some of them might be like, for example, they got issued in the calendar year, but also got a final occupancy. So then that would be, final permit. And so all of that it's like very prescriptive on how that data is outlined in the annual progress report. So
you're saying the data on the certificate of occupancy is in the report?
Yes. It's in
I missed it.
Attachment 3. Yeah.
Sorry. That's on me.
Did you just say that the documentation of what the housing, in the housing element, what kind is that? Occupancy permits, or is it
Yeah,
Initial building permits.
correct. Yeah, so it's,
Which?
it's both. It's both issued permit and also certificate of occupancy. It just, the data I presented in the PowerPoint was just permitted, but there's also another column. If we look up the, for example, yeah, it's a different column.
Yeah, so the reason that delineate the two obviously is that we issue permits all the time that never get built for a variety of reasons. Financing falls through, project doesn't make sense. So HCD wants to know how many are you issuing, and then we also want to know how many are people actually moving into, because you could get massive reports to them, and that doesn't actually amount to more housing for Californians. And so they kind of want to know, I'm sure somewhere in Sacramento, somebody is reviewing issued permits against actual occupancy to figure out how many projects are falling through and perhaps building policy around that.
Any other comments or questions?
No, Mayor. Thank you.
I have a comment that's always bothered me, and that's ongoing. There's ongoing because it's never going to be finished, because it's a statement of operations that you're going to operate this way. I don't think we get a fair shake that way. If it's, it should be ongoing smoothly. If you understand there, or broken down into setting it up, executing it.
Yeah.
But that's not their fault, not the current fault. It's the whole process that it's not really a measurement.
Yeah, the fallacy here is that cities build homes. I'm looking around the room at the staff, and I'm pretty sure that maybe unless it was your own home, no one here has built a home in Lincoln, for production. So we create the environment for them to do so, and then whether or not it actually materializes is way outside of the city's control in many cases. And so it's one of the frustrations that we at the city level have with the state, which is this expectation that, hey, we have a housing crisis and you need to jump to it and fix it. When really we just create the process and environment for it to occur. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't. So it'd be interesting to see every RHNA cycle. I really enjoy reading through sort of where everybody else is at, because with the amount of projects that Lincoln has, if we can't meet RHNA goals, given the size and scale of sort of development occurring in Lincoln, I tend to think that it's almost impossible for most other jurisdictions to come even close.
Okay. Does any member of the public have a comment? Yes?
Sorry.
PowerPoints, you had 132,000 residents. What, could you just clarify what that means? Because we're at like, what, 55,000?
We're at 52.
52,000? So can you, what does that mean from now to 20?
Yeah, so basically how the general plan policy, the general plan itself has a planning horizon, meaning like this general plan is good until we reach a certain population, which in this case, it's good until we reach 132,000. We're currently at 50,000. So then, by the time we reach 132, this general plan is no longer, it's basically obsolete. So we would have to like come up with a new one. It's either that or the other metric was, or the planning horizon of 2050. So whichever comes first, either 2050 or by the time we reach 132.
Or the third option, which is that council reviews it and decides to make
That's
some updates.
Yes, yeah. If the policies are no longer meeting our needs, then we can change it completely to a whole overhaul of it.
Okay. No.
You're ready, go for it.
No further discussion?
No.
Entertain a motion.
I move to 1, 2, and then 3, adopt resolution 2024-046, authorizing the staff to file the report at the Office of Planning and Research in the State Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta? Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carl Skint.
Yes. On to the next, thank you.
Thank you, Efren.
Next item on the agenda, 10B, is adopt resolution 2024-047, adopting recommendations to improve public parking resources for Lincoln's downtown historic district as formulated and recommended by the EDC.
Aaron, is this your first presentation?
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
It is.
Whoop, whoop.
And I'm going to lead her in, but I won't do what I do to everybody else and take the entire report. Aaron came to us, what are you, 1 month now?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Here.
Boy, time flies. So, and a lot of this work occurred prior to Erin coming on board, and she sort of picked this project up and is now running with it, which is exactly why she was hired, among many other things. So just to give a little context for those council members that don't sit on the EDC, the EDC has delved into all kinds of different economic development or economic development adjacent sort of pursuits. And of course, one of the discussions that we're always having and we'll always have probably is about the downtown. And one of the things I noticed when I first got here was the inordinate amount of discussion that we had about parking. Parking. Is there enough? Is there not enough? Is the parking good enough? Is that the reason why we can't attract business A, B, or C? Almost a sort of an obsession, honestly, with parking. And one of the things I'm super excited is the EDC decided on its own, you know what, we're actually going to analyze this. We're going to get out and we're going to do some field work and we're going to come up with some ideas and we're going to either dispel myths or reinforce, assumptions. And then we're going to figure out what the next path forward is. So it was really great work. It included some partnerships with UC Davis. We had a team out here that analyzed the whole downtown, a number of engineering students that did a case study on Lincoln with some recommendations. Joanne, Bob, and David, I believe, were the committee working on this, and they, beyond that, just did an immense amount of surveying of actual parking spaces in the downtown within a reasonable walking radius of commercial to get an idea about capacity, how much is being used, et cetera. And with all that, they kind of cobbled together a variety in your report, which is Aaron's going to go through, a short-term and long-term solutions for the city to have sort of on the books. So next time, and it will happen again, the parking comes up, we have some relatively inexpensive things that we can do in the short term, and then longer term, some things that might help with parking in the downtown. And I'll kick it over to you. That's the history.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, council members, for having me and the opportunity to present on the parking recommendations from the Economic Development Committee. I'll go over a little bit of what Sean said and provide some of that background as well on my presentation. So as Sean mentioned, parking is a huge priority here in the city of Lincoln, and something we hear as we continue to grow and expand our city limits and the offerings we have for our commercial community. The Economic Action Plan was brought to City Council in August of 2023 and approved. One of the main priorities of that action plan, in fact, priority 2, was revitalizing downtown. And one of the key action items to address the revitalization was public parking. So the Public Parking Subcommittee was formed with the Economic Development Committee, and as Sean mentioned, a huge amount of collaboration took place between the Community Development Department and also the University of California, Davis Civil and Environmental Engineering students. They came up with a tremendous amount of findings based on the Community Development Department feedback as well as the engineering feedback from UC Davis, and came up with 8 near-term solutions and 9 long-term solutions. The comprehensive list is available in your staff report, but to give you a sample of some of those examples, they include standardizing signage, which was a huge outcome of both the case study with UC Davis as well as feedback from staff. An online parking map to ensure that our residents and businesses know where parking is available within the city limits. A communication campaign to make sure those issues are brought to the forefront and that we can address those. Repurposing existing properties. So what can we do with properties that are already in downtown to better utilize what we have available, and what can we look like to expand parking moving forward in the future? And then also continuing to evaluate curbside parking. So the recommendation that came out of the parking subcommittee was the 8 near-term, 9 long-term solutions. That was approved by the Economic Development Committee at their February meeting. And so our recommendation this evening is for City Council to approve the resolution adopting recommendations to improve public parking resources for Lincoln's historic downtown district. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of council?
No questions. Holly and I both sit on the Economic Development Committee and have been very aware of this process and support it.
After a lot of the questions that I had already asked, I support it. And I really love the ideas of all the signage and things. And maybe I heard about a QR code that was going to be used and an app that might be able to help others to see where the public park or city public parking is, so that it makes it a lot easier for people to know exactly where they're. I think there was a property we had that I didn't even know that the city owned that was for public parking. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. So
That's a great
I
point.
support it.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's a great point with this report and these recommendations. It really gives city staff an opportunity to look forward and evaluate what makes the most sense so that we can budget for that appropriately and bring those projects back to council.
I really appreciate, and I've said this before, our current Economic Development Committee, they've done a lot of work. And just even bringing in UC Davis engineering students, I'm like, that's such a great idea, right? They've come forward with a lot of ideas. And so Aaron, I appreciate you jumping in and grabbing this too. And like Paul said, we've seen these recommendations several times. They've been really working hard on them. And I really like the idea of a information campaign, because so many people say there's never any parking. Like, well, there actually is. You just don't know where it's at, right? And so one of the things that's our job is to inform the public of things. And so I really like that, and I'm in support of this plan. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any advantage? Well, and it may not be legally possible. The UC engineering study, to put it online on the website. I don't know whether it's proprietary or.
I don't think so. In fact, I think we have a recorded version of the presentation that they gave with associated materials, and it's for us, for our use. So I don't see any reason why it couldn't be published.
To show, to put it up on the website, show that we're doing.
I believe it's part of one of the EDC meetings that's archived on the agendas and minutes page.
As a separate item.
They did a presentation to the EDC committee, and that is posted on our archived agendas and minutes page. So I can get that exact date to council. And
it is part of the public record at this point, much like any consulting engineer's report.
So I think what Dan's looking for is, can you lift that presentation out of that and
I
then
don't
link
want
it?
to have to go through the whole EDC meeting.
well, when we archive our agenda meetings, we actually timestamp that so that you could go to that specific agenda item, and that will be the videotape and that agenda item as well.
Maybe the report itself. The
Yeah.
point is, you show people that we're working the parking problem.
Yep. Well, we could pull that out and create, a link on maybe the EDC page to sort of show this plan and how we got to it.
Correct. And to add to that, we do have the individual pieces that were presented by the students that we could make available on the website.
Yeah, that's good.
Right in your bailiwick, right?
Yep.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, online?
None online, Mayor.
Okay. I will accept a motion.
Right, I move approval of item 10B, Resolution 2024-047.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen? And Mayor Carl Skint.
Yes. The down stretch, city manager report.
Yeah. Sure. Yes, thank you. So I just want to report on a couple things. We've talked about a lot. We have 4 committees, probably more I'm forgetting of, but 4 committees that meet super regularly that are producing a lot of really great work product. You have EDC, you have FIOC, you have airport, and you have recreation. One we don't speak about nearly enough is the Parks and Rec committee, who sort of, all of these committees sort of serve as a clearinghouse or idea generator that sort of bubbles up to the city council. The best comes to the top. And the Parks and Rec committee had a really interesting meeting last week about a few different things that are going on. One is there's a proposal to us from a group that are BMX enthusiasts. And they've been talking to actually the city for a long time, trying to find a location. And the Parks and Rec committee heard an item last week that there's an area over by Foskett, in Foskett Park, that's basically a dirt lot, essentially, right adjacent to the ball fields. That one time was conceived as an additional kind of overflow parking lot. And this group has proposed this concept of at no cost to the city, creating essentially a dirt BMX facility there that would be for public use, and then also for tournaments and well, I guess the races, I'm not really sure. But and the Parks and Rec committee, from what I hear, was very interested in it and sort of blessed it to move forward into up to city council. So we're working on completing the details of that, and you'll be seeing it. In addition, our largest, I'm safe to say that it will be maybe not our largest, but it will certainly be our most expensive park ever built in Lincoln. Not because of where it's at, but because of the times we live in. Bella Breeze Park, which is in 12 Bridges, it's a regional park, has gone through a pretty intensive preliminary design process, and we presented those to the Parks and Rec committee to get their feedback, and we'll be circulating that. It'll be available for the public to see online, but it's financing it is another situation, and we'll have to talk about that down the road. But it is a park that has a little something for everybody. It has ball fields, it has soccer fields, it has basketball courts, it has pickleball courts, it has a covered athletic area that you can play things sort of in, wet weather. It has walking areas, it has picnic areas, it's everything that you can imagine most parks these days have. And so now the trick is to figure out how we phase it, which Vin and his team are working on right now. We think we're going to have enough fund balance in park PFEs to build a pretty reasonable set of the first phase. So there'll be a nice, usable regional park for that community, for everybody, but specifically for that community as well. And that'll be moving forward as they continue. They're now moving into more specific design. And then finally, really cool, one of our planning commissioners, Eric Johnson, had a neat idea. If you haven't ever been, if you ever go to Maidu Park in Roseville, there's a area that they've created basically a pretty intense fitness area. It's almost kind of like an outdoor gym with permanent, facilities. And there's this kind of thing has really taken shape, and it's a little different than sort of maybe what you would have seen 10 or 15 years ago, where you'd have these sort of iron or steel structures that were kind of put around the edge of a park. This is like a workout center almost, where anybody can go anytime, and you can do all kinds of calisthenics or weight bearing things. And the Parks and Rec committee, I understand, really liked that idea too. So, and that's a much less expensive project. And so now the idea is where would it make the most sense and how would we like to fund it? So there's three pretty neat things coming forward. Two other really quick things. Christine and I and Matt met with our awardee of the hangar project just today and are getting started on agreements, and plans are being drawn and will be submitted to engineering for review here pretty soon. Their goal, if we're able to pull it off, is to try to get all of the underground, or at least a lot of the underground trench and civil work completed before the end of August for obvious weather reasons. And then I think you likely will see construction activity when weather permits sometime thereafter. So that's moving along rapidly. And finally, we'll be circulating some of it just for general council feedback. But Aaron's been working on some pretty neat, we'll be rolling it out all out as I hope as one, but some really neat branding improvements and sort of refreshes to the city of Lincoln. Everything from how we market our commercial opportunities here in town to things like she's created a new business packet. So if you want to start a business here in Lincoln, you get a packet that has short, clear, precise information about where to check, who to call, what to do. In addition to something I haven't really seen much of, at least in my time in local government, which is called a new resident packet. So if you come in to sign up for service, you'll get a little packet and it'll tell you things about Lincoln. Where are our parks? Where are some of our commercial areas? Where what are some good numbers for you to know and call? And really kind of a nice warm welcome for new residents in town, which I think is kind of a nice extra touch that you don't get everywhere. So, and there'll be more down the road. She's got, every day she brings in some new design that she's come up with. So I think we're headed towards telling our story in a bit more modern way moving forward. And I think that's all I have for now, unless you have any questions.
Yeah, I just want to say that that National Fitness Court thing that Eric brought up, he had contacted me right before the Park and Rec meeting, and I wasn't able to be there. I had a conflict, but that organization reached out to me a few years back, and I did a whole Zoom thing with them and investigated, and it's a really cool concept. But at the time, we were dealing with a lot of heavy stuff, and I told them, I said, look, I like your concept, but we're just not in a place to do that. And so when Eric, I said, how did you get in contact with them? He goes, I just cold called them. I'm like, really? And so I said, well, that's great. It's a great idea. And I'm glad Park and Rec liked it. And so he and I will, I told him I'd help him with that. And so I'm excited. I think that's great. It's good to see people taking an initiative on stuff. Did you have something you want to say about that?
Yeah, you just spurred my memory that in terms of things that we discussed previously and now are kind of materializing now. One other thing is if you I think it's next week, we have an EDC meeting. And one of the items that
It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. Okay. Oh, geez. I better prep.
I was like,
huh?
wait, next week?
I have to prep early in the morning. We whether it be tomorrow or the next meeting, we are working on with one of our local businesses, restarting and pushing forward for city council approval, a parklet pilot program to try out
Good.
the parklets. I've talked with Vin, our city engineer, about it. He has experience doing this. There are ways we can do it. We can do our best to mitigate risk and ensure safety, while at the same time doing what we really want to do, which is create more outside space for people to, sit and enjoy food and drinks. And so our idea is to try out a couple of test cases for a determinate period of time and then kind of see where it leads us. But we didn't feel comfortable doing it until the parking work had been done, so that when we inevitably have to deal with the likelihood that we're going to lose a few parking spaces here and there, we can point back to the work that's been completed, which is, look, we do have adequate parking for the time being, and we have a lot of opportunities for more down the road. So I hope you see, we're working on it. I hope you see it at the second meeting in March for a look.
I had one more question for you, Sean. Just really quickly, what's our status on the skate park?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Vin to jump in on this, but the consultant's been selected and the design is in process, I believe. I think there's meetings that they're going to hold.
Are we going to have some public input meetings for that still?
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. Araceli's not able to join tonight, but definitely, I spoke to her about, your interest, Councilmember Andrietta. Definitely went at the appropriate time, when we really get into the certain design elements you're interested in, we're certainly gonna have an opportunity to, gather more input.
Okay.
But it is ongoing and we're moving as quickly as we can.
No, I appreciate you. I know you are. I just haven't heard an update lately, and I just wanted to.
Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll commit to kind of giving more regular updates on that project since there's a lot of interest in it. Like my understanding though is that, the design work starts with the meat and potatoes stuff, grading, drainage, all the stuff that is maybe slightly less interesting to skateboarders. And then when we get to the amenities part, because that's the part where we really want to make sure we're building a skate park that they want. Do you want 5 stairs or 7 stairs? Do you want a bowl or do you want a ramp? All the questions that, we want the feedback from the kids and adults that will actually be using it. And
Great.
yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Questions for Sean? Next item on the agenda is council initiated business. Does anyone have anything they want on a future agenda?
I'm not sure on a future agenda. I'm just going to float this out there. The discussion about parking pulled this back up in my mind. I got an email several days ago, maybe some of you did as well, from a woman who's very concerned about her son or her child having to walk from around East Avenue to Glen Edwards. It had never occurred to me that that would be the case, that kids would be making that trek. So when we've addressed safe routes to school, it's always been sidewalks. Well, we're asking them to cross what was a major highway, in which the traffic volume is still exactly the same. So is there a path for us to take a hard look at improving those crosswalks in our downtown, across Lincoln Boulevard, for safe routes to school and finding that funding source?
Yeah, I think that Safe Routes has been rolled into Active Transportation Program now. So Safe Routes to School, for those who don't know, used to be a Caltrans program that you funded safe routes to school, ways for kids to walk to school. It in later years was folded into this Active Transportation Program, which is that plus a bunch of other things, biking and other. And there is still funding out in various rounds, depending on a variety of criteria that I won't bore you with here. But we're pretty active in when we have a project we think that works, applying for those. But I hadn't really thought about Lincoln Boulevard in a long time, and so I'm sure that there's probably opportunity there. I mean, it's in our downtown, it's in an aged area, could use some. I don't know, Finn, if you want to jump.
So I think what popped up for me is, if you recall in the presentation by the UC Davis folks, there was some mention of a raised crosswalk, just to slow traffic down and to have it really stand out.
I think primarily they were looking at a couple locations, but one of them for sure was 6th and Lincoln Boulevard, because I sometimes cross there. It's not super safe.
Yes.
So Vin, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. In fact, our senior engineer, Roland Neufeld, is actually working on a signal coordination project for the corridor for the Lincoln Boulevard. And I've engaged him to address, some of my concerns. My experience has been, we have a very, it's a historic downtown. It's really beautiful. And if you want to make it not just, business friendly, but also welcoming for the patrons, you really have to be mindful of, how traffic circulates along this corridor. Now, of course, we have to accommodate, the trucks that that head north, from McBean and then ultimately to Sierra Pacific. But we really have to be mindful that and set the expectation so that when traffic does, come north, that they are expected to slow down as soon as they cross the ravine. And no, it's not just going to be, all green for you to blow right through here. You may have to stop at every single intersection to allow pedestrians to cross. That's a very common thing in central businesses, and I'll give you a prime example. When I was at Yolo County, the city of Woodland now has, I think, 3 or 4 intersections that are on flash constantly. I think it started when they were doing streetscapes on Main Street, and the businesses and the residents liked it so much because it felt so much safer that they said, let's put these signals on flash. And that's how it is now. But we have to be mindful though, right? We have to provide for throughput for our residents to get, to their places of employment. So certainly from Ferrari Ranch to the freeway interchange at 65, you have to provide for throughput. But, going through the downtown, we have to be intentional in how we adjust traffic and as it passes through there. The idea of raised crosswalks are not new. I have experience with the IKEA in West Sacramento was one of the first private developments to implement that. Have you ever been to IKEA? They have elevated crosswalks in the front, and it does work very well. The challenge with raised crosswalk are that it has to be contemplated at the time of design and construction because you have to account for drainage, right? If you have a raised crosswalk, there's nowhere for the water to flow, it's not going to work. And if you allow a pipe or something to flow through, then it's ongoing maintenance headache for Matt and his public works staff. But certainly we will look at, different alternatives. I am aware that the ATP program has gotten very competitive, and unfortunately, the city of Lincoln may or may not be able to compete for some of those grants because it's often based on income levels. But as far as safety programs and safety grants that are available, we will continue to look at it. If there's an opportunity to get safety funding, we will definitely pursue it. I'm a big believer in when I decided to join the city, I really like this downtown, area, and there's different ideas already flowing through my head as to how to improve it. And, with Aaron on board and our active council and EDC and Sean, we're going to bounce some ideas around, see, figure out how we can make things better.
Where do we sit on the downtown plan, the rezoning, the whole redesign of downtown? Because this traffic thing is a major part of that.
It is. I mean, there will no doubt be recommendations for public improvements that are contemplated in there. I'm going to look back. Efren, are you the lead on that? You want to come up to the mic and tell them where we're at?
So the Green Means Go, currently we closed out the request for proposals, and we were able to obtain 3 proposals from 3 different planning consulting firms that pitched the idea for making up the downtown specific plan. And so right now our committee is reviewing the proposals, and then once we have selected a consultant, we'll come back to the city council for the contract negotiation, that portion of it.
The other component to this, which I was going to bring up at some later point, but the state is clawing back roughly 50% of the Green Means Go funding. And so what was a $400,000 award may look more like a $200,000 award. And so we will have to come back and have that discussion with council, because at this point, even at $200,000 for at least my recommendation initially would be that we need to find the funding to do that regardless of where the state comes in. We can't wait any longer. We've talked about it at council to continue to hope that the plan that was designed many, many years ago is going to bear different fruit. I just think is unlikely at this point. So we have to change it up.
So that's not just the Green Means Go money, that's funding throughout the state. CalCog is very, very concerned about that clawback. its impacts on different housing programs, affordable housing programs and such. So I think you're going to see a lot of pushback on that and a desire statewide to effectively tell the state to look somewhere else. So we'll be fighting for it.
Thank you.
Okay. No council initiated business. We go on to committee reports.
Sure, I've got two, PCTPA. There were two items of interest. The one most directly impacting us was the preliminary local transportation fund, LTF fund, dollar allocations. And that's broken down by population. We're, as of January, at 52,313, which equates to $3,873,454. We make a planning contribution out of that to PCTPA of $154,938, leaving us with $3,718,516. That is a preliminary number, but I think it's slightly down from our last numbers, but we'll come back with the final numbers, but that's something staff can be looking forward to seeing. There was another item that doesn't directly impact us, but it was interesting and it could potentially impact Lincoln in the future. And that was that the county is working on their new housing element. They've got their RENA numbers just like everybody else, and they are having to scramble to come up with locations for multifamily affordable housing projects. They chose a great many sites, but this came to PCTPA in their role as the Airport Land Use Commission. And several of the sites that they were choosing were around the airport, within the overflight zone in one case, around Auburn Airport. So it's touchy. I didn't see anything that suggested that the county might be looking at areas near our airport. I don't believe they are, but it's something we could see potentially in the future. And just remember that the land, at least for the moment, on the other side of the airport, on the west side, is county. So they come right up against our city limits and right up against the airport. So just something to keep an eye on in the future. And then lastly, SACOG Transportation Committee. The majority of the meeting dealt with bringing new board members up to speed on the efforts to update the blueprint, which you're all familiar with and needs to be updated in the next couple of years. So that's ongoing. I can give you the timelines if you like. The other is that PCTPA has negotiated a new memorandum of understanding with SACOG that I think is about as good as we were going to get, given the corrective action for Caltrans that then forced Lincoln and PCTPA into 6-county competitive funding rounds, as opposed to the old 4-county for those 4 Sacramento area counties, and then El Dorado and Placer being separate. So it's the best we could do. It's decent. I think it sets out a good framework for us moving forward.
You know what, I'm going to back up just real quickly. I did have one initiated business. I just want to request that we try to get our workshop for the remaining money scheduled as quickly as we can, sooner than later. I don't know what your timeline for that was.
I think we're shooting for the last week in March.
Okay,
So a little less than 2 weeks from now.
okay. So is Jen going to send out dates?
Yeah, we'll see what works for everybody. I would strap in for probably a little, we're gonna need a couple hours, I
Yeah,
think, to get
okay,
through it. But we're gonna bring you, it'll be like a buffet of options and you could pick what you'd like for your plate.
And then I only have one report. The Waste Management Authority, we've completed our first round of interviews for the general manager. We've narrowed it down to 3. And Thursday night board meeting, we're going to actually start an hour early and use the board meeting time to finish. And we're going to do board interviews, tag interview, and staff, kind of like what we did with you, but just let them do panels. And Angela is going to sit on the tag, right, Matt? Yeah, that's good. So appreciate you guys making that accommodation so we can move forward. So, and I'll keep you updated on whoever we decide to hire.
I know that nobody else probably recognizes, but the train just went by a couple minutes ago. It's just part of Lincoln. And both Sean and Holly stole my thunder with I sat in for Holly on the rec, so I don't have anything to
Oh,
report.
sorry. Thank you for sitting in for me. I appreciate it.
2 committee meetings. Pioneer authorized the executive director to put together an MOU with an agency that has a really neat idea. And what it is to do microgrids in new housing developments where Pioneer buys the energy, doesn't have to pay transmission costs, provides the energy.
You gotta stay on your microphone, Mayor. You gotta
Yeah,
stay on
yeah.
your microphone.
Close
Yeah.
to it. There you go.
And until I don't want to go any further into it, but as soon as that MOU is signed, I'd like to have the partner come and brief us. Because I think it's really kind of exciting for new development. They ultimately will run it out to neighborhoods, but right now it's targeted to new developments, solar heat, solar light.
Is this going to get tested in the courts by PG&E? I mean,
They can't. I mean,
it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And if it's feasible and expandable,
what, although the power costs Pioneer more because you're buying it from your customer and selling it back to them. You don't pay for the solar generated and they've all got battery backup. You don't pay transportation costs. When you have to go outside and buy from PG&E, then you're back to the regular rates. So, but what it does is it provides, from a safety standpoint, a microgrid. So you don't lose any power, electric power, when PG&E does. That came in on the tail end of it, didn't have much to do with it, but as soon as it's set in concrete, I'll arrange to have a presentation. The other is LISWA. LISWA is continuing their procurement process for the operator. The round of RFPs, I think, are going out next week. And then they'll go through negotiation and everything else. So I should have more to report, probably in 2 meetings. It's been a challenge. Yeah. Okay. Next item is information item.
I just have one fun little thing. It's not really city business, but Lincoln was represented. Every year, Comstocks Magazine does a Women in Leadership edition, and they invited several women in Placer County, elected leaders, business leaders, to go do a photo shoot at the grounds. And so they did a really great drone shot of us. And so we are on page 17 in this month's magazine, and I'm right in the front. I thought that was kind of fun. It was kind of cool.
So you manage that.
I did it on purpose, actually. Hey, no one ever called me shy. Like, no one has ever accused me of being shy.
Any other information item? Well, then, With no objections, I'm going to adjourn.
Thank you, staff.
Advocate, I was going to say. Thank you.